I wanted to share a couple of quick thoughts with respect to transhumanism and the future in terms of AI and immortality and how it is that we approach this future and how we imagine it. Because there is a significant shortcoming. We always transplant ourselves as we are now, completely unchanged in what we feel and desire, into whatever that future might happen to be. In other words, we play it like we're playing a video game. So when we play, Cyberpunk 2077, we put ourselves directly into that character and we're still feeling and desiring and doing things exactly the same as we did before because we're still the same. But that's a fundamental mistake, because one of the things that's going to happen in the future, and the not too terribly distant future because it's already happening, is that we are going to change what it means to be human. And we are already willing to do this in a variety of ways. I mean, everybody's worried about, okay, well, if we become immortal, or if we're able to completely remove jealousy and envy and anger and all these things, should we do it? Is there an essentially human element there? And the extreme is the wrong way of thinking about that. So when people go to an optometrist, you're not necessarily looking to get eagle vision. It would be nice, perhaps, if we had it, but that's not really the purpose. We're just trying to correct things. We're trying to correct something that is a genuine nuisance and gap, and I would rather not have it. Such that, most people don't take glasses off just because it's fun. It's not fun not to see. It's not fun to have certain kinds of limitations and certain kinds of irritations. And so we have already shown a willingness over the past, several centuries, right, in terms of accepting corrective lenses so that we can actually see. A more modern form of that, as we get now closer to the interiority of the self, is with respect to how we feel. And people have shown, especially in certain circumstances that are particularly untenable, so what normally passes for mental illness with respect to depression and anxiety and other difficult conditions, people are willing to take pharmaceuticals so that they can ease that trouble, so that they can become less depressed, become less anxious, become more of what they want by removing one of the hindrances, just like putting on eyeglasses. And so what I would argue is that when we're thinking about, what is going to happen in the future and, how is it going to be in these environments? Well, one of the things that we have to remember is that we are more than willing to change ourselves. We are more than willing, especially temporarily, to take something that makes us feel better, that takes something that improves our vision, to take something that makes us less depressed, anxious, jealous, whatever it is, any of a number of different things that are nuisances to us and are a problem for us independently, individually, and socially. And so I think that's something that we have to realize, and especially when we try to consider things like, okay, once it's possible to genetically modify what it means to be human and get rid of a lot of these things. And, well, I say once it's possible, but we're already doing that to some extent, and we're already, engaging with technologies where, if you could remove a predisposition for cancer, predisposition for Alzheimer's or heart trouble or whatever it might happen to be, wouldn't you do it? And in most cases, the answer tends to be with people, yes, they're willing to correct these things that are obviously just flaws and are just nuisances, and we get nothing of real value out of them in terms of our hierarchy of needs. So there is no sort of, self-transcending individuality about being sick. We would just rather certain things not be the case. And so even when someone goes into a nature retreat and, or let's say a sesshin and is meditating for months at a time, oftentimes they'll still take their glasses with them. Because it's something that just, let's just correct it. It's not noble necessarily to be poor in certain ways when it comes to human deficiencies. And so I would extend this, and I know this is very provocative, but I would extend this to the question of AI companionship as well, and what it is that people are already doing with respect to the use of online resources from, whether it's ChatGPT or HeyPi or Claude or whatever, so that they're interacting with these things knowing that they don't have the judgment of another person coming to them. And we're sometimes willing to be more open and honest and actually work through things in a way where we don't have those, we don't have those barriers with an AI that we might with another person. And so that clears out some of the dross. And when I say dross, I'm talking about things in terms of especially the first noble truth for Buddhism, which is, all life is dukkha. And I suggest, you hear this, all life is suffering. Suffering is not a great translation of that word. It's more like dissatisfaction. There's something impure in terms of satisfaction with everything. So it has what I like to call, make up a word for it, dissatisfactoriness. So there is something that's just not quite fully right and fulfilling about existence. And so if it was possible for us to remove some of those hindrances and remove some of those problems, wouldn't you want to do that? And the answer tends to be, when we looked at corrective lenses, when we look at taking antibiotics, when we look at a variety of other things that people are already doing, these are species of the same kind of thing that we're simply going to have in a more advanced technological form. And so I think it's useful for us to remember that this isn't something completely new in certain ways. I mean, a brain-computer interface is arguably completely new. We haven't really gotten to do that yet, but even there with the extended mind, but that's a different topic. A lot of these things are not completely new, and we've already shown a willingness to do them. And so we should remember that, but we should also, more than anything else, remember when we're talking about utopias, when we're talking about, I mean, for instance, when I was lecturing on Marx recently, people talk about utopia in the sense of, okay, well, maybe humans would reject it. Maybe we don't like being bored in a certain way, and that we are going, and all of that rhetoric assumes that we're going to remain unchanged and that we're not going to be willing to change ourselves. Even though, as I'm arguing here, we're more than willing to change ourselves, and we've shown that for centuries. And every time a new technology comes out where we can take a pill to fix one of those nuisances, we tend to do it, and we tend to do it en masse. So I don't think that's necessarily going to be a problem for us. It's also not something to be worried about or afraid of. It's something that, yeah, okay, if there are side effects, especially genetic, modifying something that's that close to the core of what it means to be human, we have to be careful. But fundamentally, that's exactly the sort of thing that we're already geared to want to do. So our motivations are already in the right place to do a lot of those things. We've shown a willingness to do it, which is why I think it's foolish for us, aside from a video game, to look at a Cyberpunk 2077 sort of situation and just transplant ourselves in vivo into that, because we're simply not going to be the same people, and we're going to leap in feet first to not be the same people.